It's all changed at West Ham, but then many things still remain the same. We've got transfer window coming up, and I've got to be honest, I do love transfer window. I love the gossip. I love opening up. I was going to say opening up the newspaper. I've not opened up a newspaper in a very long time, but whatever, you know. Opening up my phone, clicking on the internet, all that sort of thing, and reading the transfer rumours. I know most of them ain't true, but I like reading them anyway. Sort of allow myself to dream a little bit as well. Find out a little bit about players that I probably didn't know. Probably hadn't heard of a lot of them. Some of them you have. And then, you know, it's good. It makes for good topics of conversation. I think it makes for good video. It's interesting hearing what you lot think as well. By and large, a lot of you have heard of these players before I have. So a lot of you tell me who's who and what's what. As a couple of you did with the fellow that's at Slavia Prague, the striker there. I've had a few people give me his stats and tell me what they think. Very, very interesting times. However, I do think when I said at the start that times have changed, I think not so much the ethos of the club has changed, but I think the stature of the club has changed. I don't mean the stadium. I don't mean almost anything that the owners have done or anything like that. None of the stuff that we thought would necessarily happen when we moved from Upton Park. But I just mean the standing of the club within the eyes of other players, within their agents as well. Because it ain't too long ago that we were, not relegation certainties, but scrapping for relegation. And as I mentioned in yesterday's video, we are a sort of top 10 team now. And I know a couple of people said, well, it's a little bit early to say that. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. I think when you have 20 odd points, in excess of 20 points before Christmas, then I think it's fair to assume that you're not going to be scrapping it out for relegation. And that in itself is a step forward for West Ham. Not the lofty heights of Champions League and everything like that, but enough to convince players to sign who previously might have been slightly nervous about doing so. I'll give you the example of James Tarkowski just quickly, because I don't want to labour the point and I don't want to sign him. But I think it was very much at the start of the season, before a ball had been kicked, we were trying to get him and we kept on upping the bid. And he very politely dropped the hint in the media that he didn't want to join West Ham. He wanted to join a Champions League club. Now, I don't think that was really on the cards. I don't think Manchester City were coming in for James Tarkowski anytime soon. But I think what it did was it was enough of a comment just to separate him from West Ham. He's very much saying, I'm not interested in relegation struggles. I'm setting my sights higher. He had his place in the England team to fight for. I can completely understand it. But my point is, the way he may have perceived the club and the way that we certainly were is not what we are now. Now, obviously, the evidence, as we've discussed on numerous occasions, came from post-lockdown, last time, end of last season, and now on to this. And it just makes us more attractive to other players and to bring in other players in. And I do wonder if that is going to convince the owners to release the purse strings. There's two ways of looking at it here. Either they're just going to want to survive, by which case anything is fine. Just staying in the Premier League is fine. Then they're safe. They don't need to spend another penny. I understand that way of thinking. Absolutely. Stay in the Premier League, sell us on. Now, for reasons that we discussed again numerous times, I do not believe that there are a queue of people lining up to buy Premier League football clubs at the moment. It's not the right time, and nobody knows what's going to happen. Fans get let back in, then they get stopped. It's a handful at a time, and there is a new TV deal waiting. We don't know what the makeup of that is going to be. Certainly, the relationship between Sky and the Premier League is fraught at best, and you just don't know what companies like Amazon or anybody else, or Google, anyone is going to come up with in terms of a package to try and buy Premier League rights. So now it's uncertain. It's uncertain in terms of ticket turnstile revenue, uncertain in terms of future television deals. Not the right time to buy a football club, I would suggest. And there's also the spectre hanging over of some clubs wanting to do a European breakaway, which they threaten all the time, albeit by stealth, threaten it by stealth. And of course, there's the other thing of when you're looking at how the teams are doing, and you're looking at the transfer embargoes, and you're looking at financial fair play, and you're looking at all these other factors that are involved in it. It's just not the right time to buy a football club. However, I still think we should invest, and I think now is a very, very good time to invest. And I do think there is going to be change at West Ham. Whether the investment comes or not, I don't know. Now, we've just signed Mikel Antonio to a new 3-year contract. We've taken up his 2-year option and put another option on the end of that. So that's basically 3 years. Keeps him here until he's about 33. But we've not just made the option on his previous terms. Apparently, we've upped his wages. So it's basically saying, look, we're exercising our clause, Mikel, but we'll give you some more money as well. As I understand it, the player's happy, the club are happy, and so we should be. Realistically, he's our main man striker at the moment. I think we look not as potent when he's not on the pitch. But I don't think he should be. I don't think his injury record is good enough for us to base the whole way we play around him. And it does. We discussed this yesterday. We don't change the way we play when Sebastian Haller comes into the team. So actually, we probably need another striker like Mikel Antonio. Oh, I would love it. I would love David Moyes to buy a Adama Traore and turn him into a striker. I would love it. It ain't going to happen, of course. We couldn't afford him. But I do think we need to be busy in the market in that area. That leaves us with an issue with Sebastian Haller, which is, are we going to cash in on him? Now, if you watch this channel regularly, you know I suspect he won't be here next season. I will either be proved right or wrong, and in that opinion, doesn't matter. But I suspect that to be the case. Mikel Antonio, I think I'm delighted he's signed a new contract. Not only do I think he's got a massive part to play, I think he's going to play in a lot of games. I think he's going to score a lot of goals. And I think when he looks back on his West Ham career, he's going to look back with a lot of success. But he does get injured. Every season, he gets injured. And for that reason, I think we need a little bit more than a number 2, a backup to him. Actually, I think possibly Mikel Antonio should be the number 2. He's a wonderful substitute as well. Don't mean he ain't going to start. Don't mean he ain't going to play. Don't mean he ain't going to have an impact. But I wouldn't be surprised if Moyes has got the feelers out for somebody. And it might not necessarily be Josh King, because I don't think Josh King is that guy. I think Josh King is the number 2. I think Josh King is the guy to come in and play understudy to Antonio. That I would understand. But I do think that there is an opportunity there to buy a top guy. Now, it may mean that Haller goes out on loan or something like that. You just don't know. With a view to sign a permanent deal. I certainly have so much faith in Haller's ability. Actually, unlike Felipe Anderson, who's gone out on loan to Porto and done nothing and probably decreased his value by going out on loan, I've no doubt at all that Sebastian Haller goes out on loan, plays in the right system for the right manager, he scores goals, and because he's a good player, just needs to be in the right system with the right team built around him. His value at the moment, what would get Sebastian Haller? I would imagine, if we were just to sell him now, I don't think too many people would be paying more than £25 million for him. I think he's depreciated by at least 20 million. And some of that is the fact that he hasn't really been a roaring success. Some of that may have been that we may be slightly overpaid. Some of that may have been that the market is slightly depreciated because of coronavirus and whatnot. However, I do think if you were to go on loan, let's say you went back to a Bundesliga club and started banging in the goals again for them, that 25 million start working its way up to 30 and 35 million, and we may well be able to mitigate some of our losses by doing that. I think that could happen. Maybe not this season, but maybe next season. I just don't see him being around. So I think that needs to be dealt with. Also, you start to look at other areas of the pitch. And we've got the Chelsea game coming up. And I do not believe for a moment that David Moyes is entirely happy with what we saw defensively against Crystal Palace. I thought it was quite a funny one. I thought he'd got to a point with the centre-backs where it didn't need addressing. I felt that. And I don't know, because you don't know. He's a private man. He keeps his thoughts to himself. But I almost got the impression David Moyes probably thought that. I got the impression David Moyes probably thought, well, hold on a second. You know, Balbuena's come in. He's much better than I thought he was. We got Diop there as backup. We got old Craig Dawson there as well. Aaron Cresswell's, playing fine at centre-back. It's probably not something that I need to address. It's probably not something I need to do. I wonder if he looks at it now, I think actually that is an area that I need to. I'm going to revisit. I'm going to go back to it. He might not be comfortable with Diop coming in from what he saw the other day. Bearing in mind he was uncertain about Balbuena anyway. Maybe he's just changed on that. Then you bring into account the Masuaku injury, which I think has had so much impact. It's unbelievable. It's forced a formation change. And that's quite impactful. Regardless of whether you think Masuaku is good, bad or indifferent, his loss has forced a formation change. That's quite significant. And everybody, all of us, when Aaron Cresswell played at left wing and he hit the bit of AstroTurf or whatever it was and he started hobbling around with everybody, we all thought, oh no, this is not good at all. So I think the margins are very fine between the team ticking along nicely and one or two things making it go wrong. So I just wonder if now, whilst we're going well, whilst I don't think we'll suffer any major blip, we're not a streaky team anymore. Don't look to go on any massive losing streak. I don't think David Moyes has lost 2 games consecutively for a very, very long time. So we're never going to go on a losing streak that's bad enough to get us relegated, and we probably could see it how as it is, but I do think we're going to get into the window, and David Moyes is going to want to address a number of positions. And leave all that Declan Rice thing to one side for a moment. I just don't think he's getting sold at all, and if he does, it's not going to be in this window. And to be honest with you, reading through the comments on yesterday's video with a lot of people, I don't blame you for saying it, right? You know, if you write your West Ham opinions in the comments, the comment sections for. But so many of you were saying, I think he's going to go. I think that's it. You're saying that's it. Gonzo, he's gone next season. He's gone. I think he'll be gone in the summer. I don't disagree with you, but I'll tell you what, bloody depresses me reading it. So I don't overly want to talk about that, even though I've just spoken about it for 30 seconds. But I do think he's going to look at it and he might think, okay, midfield can wait slightly. Midfield can wait a little bit. I'm going to go and get me striker in. I'm going to go and get a left back in. I'm going to go and get a centre back in. Now, not all of that. I don't expect Gold and Sullivan to start making, hey, oh, Davey, yeah, you've got us into, what, I don't even know where we are in the league, whatever. By the time this video goes out, 8th in the league, 9th in the league, whatever we might be, right? The Gold and Sullivan turn around and go, hey, our moisty old son, here's 100 million, you've got us into 9th. It ain't going to happen. I think there'll be a little bit of money there. I think the Ben Rama money is there, unspent at the moment. I think that's interesting. I am not. I think we should and we could make that deal permanent. However, the obligation to buy was not a phrase that I was ever aware of more about 6 weeks ago. So I can't speak with any certainty and say there's no loophole, there's no get out in the obligation to buy. I don't know. There's money there anyway. I think they'll spend it on Ben Rama. I think they probably should. However, there will be some money available in January. That's just going to happen because actually, if you look at the books, I know we've lost money, all right? I know we've lost money. Every club has lost money. But if you remember, me and Sean Whetstone did a video. It looks like the club have borrowed about 100 million. Don't forget, we got big money for Diangana. Jesse got sold as well. Hugo got sold. We were pulling in bits and pieces of money, and we've saved a lot on wages. Okay, so I do think there's money there for another player. However, I do think Moyes is going to want to, and he's going to get permission to, sell some players. Sell some players to generate some more funds to strengthen in the position with which he wants to strengthen. And that is going to be really, really interesting. Who do I think is up for sale? Well, I'll tell you what, Felipe Anderson is bang up for sale, but no one's going to buy him. People can't borrow him and get a tune out of him. So who are our saleable assets? Forget about depreciation. Forget what they should have been worth. Just think about what they're worth now. So while Sebastian Haller, we should think he might be worth 45 million, no one's going to pay that. But will 25 million tempt David Moyes to sell him? Obviously, he's got to get that past the owners. But will he think he can do better with that sort of money? And one other player springs to mind, and it's someone maybe we might deal with in a little while. He's young, he's athletic, he's very good. He might not have depreciated as much as we think, but Issa Diop cost £23 million. It's exactly the sort of money David Moyes would like to spend on a centre-half. I'm just wondering if somebody came in with 18 million or something like that for Issa Diop, whether David Moyes would turn around and say, actually, I could do something with that money.